Far Cry 5's hardest difficulty is already tough on its own, but what if you could only use a slingshot? No guns, no throwables, only a Y-shaped stick with some string attached to it. What started off as a nightmare challenge actually turned into something I didn't expect. So what do you think? Is it possible? Let's check it out. First, let me get you up to speed. In the world of Far Cry 5, we find ourselves in Montana with our best friends in the whole world, Burke, Whitehorse, Pratt, and Hudson. Our primary goal to find and arrest Joseph Seed for the first-degree crime of fulfing after dark. What the heck is a fulfing? Oh, I see. Yeah, that'll do it. Things go terribly wrong. Then after crashing and blowing up, I run away into the wilderness to momentarily delay my imminent death. Since I don't have a slingshot at this point in the game, and it's impossible to find one as far as I'm aware until much later, the only way for me to proceed is to not fight. So I just run past these two guys, then right afterward I run into Burke. Burke is understandably not my friend anymore since he literally left me hanging, so to get back at him I let him do all of the fighting for me in this next section. As you can see, he does not do very well. Apparently Burke was trained by Paul Blart himself, so he died close to 30 times before I decided I had to lower his difficulty a bit to give him a decent chance of success. This, along with my help reviving him, he does finally survive long enough to take out the enemy for us, and we can move on to the next roadblock. Even while employing the same strategy I did with Burke, the forced shooting section that followed was insanely difficult. It's entirely random whether the enemy hits you or not, even with the tried and true dodge and weave method that I was using. But I found that if they weren't shooting me, they were shooting the truck, and sometimes it would explode on its own since it's a much bigger target than I am. But eventually, with RNG on my side and with some well-timed heals, I do make it through the forced shooting section without needing to fire my weapon a single time. The most unfortunate part about Far Cry 5, in my opinion, is how unkind the prologue is in this regard to creative challenges. You see, technically, everything in the beginning up until you leave the island you find yourself on when Dutch abducts you is a glorified tutorial. So if you're trying to do a weapon-only challenge, you're pretty much out of luck since you can only find a few basic melee weapons and gun types. So we're gonna skip through the rest of the prologue since I found it was actually impossible to complete without playing exactly the way the game wants you to. As soon as I finish climbing this radio tower and watch Jacob's Yes broadcast, the open world begins and we're allowed to play the game however the heck we want. So in my case, my ideal gameplay is more running away and avoiding every fight at all costs until I find a slingshot. And let me tell you, finding the slingshot was an adventure in and of itself. Turns out, the slingshot is a bit of a special weapon in Far Cry 5. In all of my hours playing, I've never found one just laying around on the ground or being used by an enemy. So if I want to find one, I'm going to have to go digging. There is a questionable quest that you can complete to get one, however, so I sprint my way across the map to start it. That's where another major problem comes to light. The quest I have in mind is locked behind liberating an entire town known as Falls End, and since I'm not allowed to use anything other than a slingshot, I've got to find some kind of way around the issue. How am I going to liberate this place when I don't even have the weapon I need to start the challenge? Along my travels up to this point, I came across a fellow survivor known as Neil Fry. Usually I like to do things solo, but sometimes you need to know when to ask for help. Him and I make our way to Falls End, and let me tell you all right now, even on the hardest difficulty, Fry is an absolute Terminator. He needed my help at first to be picked up if he found himself surrounded, but otherwise he took a barrage of bullets like it didn't even affect him. We were a team, and he was the perfect soldier. I told him where to go and who to shoot, and he did so without question. If he went down, I'd pick him back up, and if I went down, he'd do the same right back. And all the while, he was only getting stronger. I mean, just look at him. This is the face of a man who's trying to find his family. And since he's helping me, I'm going to help him. Look at this. Not even air support could take this man down. Let's just say I know who I'm calling on from now on if I need help in the future. Now with Falls End under my control, I have access to the quest I need to get the slingshot. So first, I talk to the Falls End cook, who then tasks me with retrieving a truck with a testy-festy trailer on the back of it. This is originally supposed to be an incredibly easy mission to start the player off in the world. All I have to do is retrieve the truck from a guy named Kenny and deliver it back to Falls End. So it can't be all that bad, right? I reach my destination and find Kenny, who's locked the trailer in his shed for safekeeping. But first, he needs my help to take out all these vultures because apparently one of them swallowed the only key. I'm not super sure how I can shoot these vultures down without a slingshot, but you lied to me right to my face. You are a good shot. Alright, well thank you, Kenny. I'll just be taking this trailer back to Casey and... Oh no. Oh no, 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 come on. Clearly this wasn't working, and as I mentioned before, this was the only mission that resulted in you getting a free slingshot. So what am I gonna do now? After taking the fast travel of shame back to Fall's End, I take a look at the slingshot in the shop. You can buy it for like 2,000 bucks, but in order to do that, you need to have one level of resistance in any region. So Neil, I'm gonna have to ask you to stay with me for a while longer. Okay. Because without his help, I have absolutely no way to progress in this game. One level of resistance, by the way, is right here, in case you wondered. I originally thought it was one whole boss completion, and thank goodness that wasn't the case, but while easier, it's still not going to be a walk in the park. In order to get resistance points in this game, you need to complete side quests, random events that occur throughout the world, and liberate fellow survivors. This could take quite a while, and to top it off, I've got to do it 3 separate times. So I guess I better get started. But before I do, I think it's a good time to check out my perk list and see what I'm going to save up for. Considering I only have access to one weapon type, most of the ways to gain perk points is going to be limited to hunting and doing prepper stashes. But that's alright, I don't need a ton of perks anyway, since there's only so many that'll affect my gameplay in the challenge. Health boost is always a must, no matter what you're doing in this game. Same with Journey Pack, since it allows you to carry up to 5 medkits at a time. But with this specific challenge, my best bet is going to be with the Primal Mastery perk, since it allows you to reload, aim, and switch slingshots faster. Then, honestly, as of right now, those are the only perks that I feel are a must. I could and probably will get things like Harvest Master to get double the amount of plants to make boosters with, but they're not a requirement for the challenge. To start off the rest of my adventure, I run around the place trying to specifically find a bunch of prepper stashes. This will get me resistance points and perk points at the same time that I can use to become less, terrible at the game. This goes well for a minute, but I get bored of running across the map and decide to go help Grace out by defending her mausoleums. This is where something went wrong. Our boy Neil was taken out a moment before I started this mission and I forgot, so now I'm left to fend for myself against this horde of Peggies. Luckily, you don't fail the mission unless every single one is destroyed, but in the end, I sit there and watch the timer count down so we don't fail. So much for not being bored, am I right? Once the timer hits 0, oh boy, you better believe I won't have any more trouble, because Neil is ready. Oh, so I guess Neil has a weakness to fire. Who knew? Neil may be dead for another 10 minutes, but he took out the rest of the enemies, only leaving the fire guys. And it seems they aren't able to do any damage to the mausoleums.
15 minutes later.
And he's back again. He destroys this one guy, and then though there are clearly 2 more here, I guess they don't matter, and I finally complete the mission after like 25 minutes. Alright, now I have enough resistance points to... Oh, come on! Now I have enough resistance points to check out the shop again. Ah, there it is. It's beautiful. Now that I have it, I won't need Neil anymore. Let's go test this thing out. I'm not sure what I was expecting, but... Oh man. Yeah, who'd have thought? The slingshot isn't amazing. It is capable of one-shotting a normal enemy if you pull all the way back and headshot them, but when it comes to specialist enemies, yeah. Something weird I found, taking them out with a slingshot somehow was adding to my melee kills. Weird, but I guess I'll take the extra perk points. I end up getting stuck on this particular mission for so long. I was pretty much entirely reliant on the random resistance members I liberated to take out the flamethrower guy, and if they died, I lost the mission. But eventually, with my new friends, I do prevail with some close calls. Then, after heading back to my base of operations at Fall's End, I saw something that completely derailed the challenge. So, what this means for anyone not paying attention, I'm apparently able to shoot arrows out of this thing. Not only normal arrows, but explosive tip and incendiary arrows as well. Oh, this challenge just got so much more interesting. This also meant that I could add the Quiver perk to my wish list because it allows you to carry up to 25 normal arrows and 8 of each special arrow. It'll definitely be worth the time investment. Getting the slingshot, however, didn't come for free. I had, as Dutch called it, pissed in John's cornflakes, and he sent his team of monstrosities to kidnap me. This wasn't exactly a difficult mission, especially since I now have arrows that actually have some stopping power. But I have very little of them, so I have to make them count. But that's the good thing about the slingshot. Once you're out of arrows, you have an infinite amount of rocks that you can missile at the enemy. Thanks to this and some careful cover usage, the first phase of John was actually pretty successful. After that, however, it's back to doing random quests throughout the world like prepper stashes to raise my resistance points. This is off topic, but good God, why did they have to make the flashlight like this? I'm not gonna show you every single thing I did because this video would be about 9 hours long, but just know there was a ton of running around. John's second abduction mission, I wish I could say went as well as the first, but as some of you who watched the first Far Cry challenge may know, he takes all of your weapons, so I'm completely unable to do anything to the enemies. I tried my best to avoid it, but after dying about 10 times, I gave in and did what the game wanted me to do. Stealth. You'd think the part afterward would be the most difficult. It's me versus about 40 enemies with no weapon after all, but all I really have to do is run past everyone and heal at just the right times. Then I can simply wingsuit away. But I didn't have time to celebrate. I do a few more missions similar to returning cows to their pens, destroying the yes sign, and using the Widowmaker to not kill people by driving around the roadblocks. Then it's time for the final confrontation with John. You see, he yoinked all of my friends who I don't really care about since they're not Neil, but it'd look pretty bad on the old portfolio if I just left and let them die. So I go try to save him. Unfortunately, John's last encounter was another forced shooting section. I've got a couple levels in health at this point, as much as I can even have at this point in the game, so I'm hoping that it'll be enough to not die if I simply don't fire my weapon.
We got Peggy's on our ass!
Okay, maybe if the pilot continues with the friendly fire, I'll have a chance. My strategy consisted entirely on healing only when I absolutely needed to, and trying to block all the bullets they were shooting with my gun that I was supposed to be shooting. Even though I died at the very end, I managed to do so after getting a checkpoint, allowing me to have gotten through this forced shooting section on my first try. But that was the easy part. John's stolen a plane, and now I have to steal one myself and follow after him. Obviously, I'm not allowed to shoot him down like the game wants me to, so I need to come up with another strategy. I tried for probably over an hour and a half simply trying to ram into him like I did in the melee only challenge, but for some reason it was just not working, no matter what I tried. I would show you more attempts, but it was pretty disorienting. The strategy I ended up with after what felt like 40 deaths was to land the plane. He would still attempt to kill me like a normal plane would, but I actually had a fighting chance on the ground. I actually ended up landing a bunch of shots, but there was one major problem that I ran into. Since he has a boss health bar, his plane doesn't explode with one single explosive arrow like all the others. What follows was one of the most tedious things I had to do in this challenge, trying to get him to follow me to somewhere more advantageous. Essentially, I was trying to get him to this location where there's a shop that I can constantly refill my ammo. If I got too far away from John, I would fail. But if I got too close, he would strafe me and pretty much instant kill me. It took forever, but I did eventually lead him to the shop, where all it took was a bunch of perfectly placed explosive tip arrows to finally take him out and get his key. John's bunker is the perfect place for me to explain my thought process for the challenge, seeing as it has most of the enemy types swarming around inside. Normal enemies most of the time take one normal arrow to take out, and as I mentioned before, if I run out of ammo, a rock can kill at max 2 headshots on an enemy. If I run into a specialist like the armored guys with LMGs, I can shoot their helmet off with an arrow and then headshot them, or do what I usually did and just chuck an explosive or incendiary arrow at them. Same with flamethrower enemies. A normal arrow to the head or the explosive part of their back is a really good way to take care of them. Snipers were a bit more difficult though because I obviously couldn't line up my shot. After fighting my way through, I reunite with my best friend Hudson and we fight our way out. A big part of this challenge I've noticed is ammo conservation, because if I only use a rock, I'm unable to break or explode things that I need to in the environment, like these pressure locks holding these platforms in place. This means that I'm heavily incentivized to either use the rocks for the slingshot or retrieve every single arrow that I shoot, assuming it doesn't disintegrate upon impact. Nothing feels worse than running out of ammo when you need it most. Thanks to stocking up on boosters before I entered the place, I'm able to withstand the approximately 3,000 enemies they send after me for a full minute and escape just in time. 1 down, 2 to go. You guys want to see something amazing? Look, I got the whole Fry clan. We got his family, we did it. Mission accomplished, Neil. Your work here is finished. The next seed in my sight is Faith. She'll be a good buffer between John and Jacob since her missions aren't super action heavy, and she has a decent amount of random events and side quests happen when in her territory, allowing me to complete it a lot faster. Her first abduction has me learn a bit about her, and then jump off a statue holding a book, and then I'm thrust straight into battle after apparently being dumped in an absolutely fabulous bed of mud. This mission where we defend Hope County Jail I expected to be a lot more difficult, but since Hey, move it up there, get out the way, I'm climbing here. There we go. Since I have my variety of arrows to use with a slingshot, it was great to get through. Most of the time I sat right here taking out everyone that tried to climb this wall, and when the trucks came, I just blew them up. This section is super good for grinding materials you need to create boosters as well, since these angels, as they're called, drop plants. So I definitely take advantage of that before moving on. Skipping right on past this next resistance level for Faith since it's just talking and setting up for the next big plot point, at this point in the game I'm finding that I've got this slingshot thing entirely down. And by down I mean I'm either hitting every shot or I'm hitting nothing. Since the slingshot is a weapon that shoots projectiles instead of something like a gun that is hit scan, I have to make sure to lead my shots to and fire where I think the enemy is going to be, rather than where they currently are. If you've ever played Hanzo in Overwatch, you know exactly what I mean and how difficult this is. Casually speeding through the next 5 hours of gameplay trying to get these resistance points, Faith makes her next move, clearly disgruntled that I keep disobeying her command to stop. So she does the most normal thing she thinks is appropriate for a time like this, and uses her psycho telekinetic mind control powers to have Burke absolutely destroy Virgil. Clearly we're not going to let that slide. So it's boss fighting time. All Virgil wanted was for him to wear a button, man. He didn't deserve that. She even has White Horse? Aw, heck no, she's going down. That was the fastest I think I've ever died to Faith. So as you just saw, getting too close to Faith is a rather terrible idea. It's like she's shooting little mini grenades out of her hands that explode on impact and do splash damage. Not to mention, since it takes 2 arrows to make her teleport away instead of just 1, it pretty much ensures I take at least 1 or 2 hits if I'm too close. So I keep my distance, and when she does this Hall of Mirrors thing where she creates after images of herself, I bring out the stones to use since all of those after images have exactly 1 HP and disappear. The real fun, however, is when I start pulling out the big guns, the explosive tips. Faith obviously didn't take that into account when she started this fight because these absolutely annihilated her. As long as I can actually land a shot, that is. In the end, even the incendiary arrows were effective on her, the lingering fire damage being the final damage she needed to take her out. I can't do it. I can't. Why do games do this? It took about 40 arrows in total, most of them being flame and explosive ones, and all she comes out with is a bruised nose and a couple scratches on her face before she's like, well, guess I'll die. Faith's bunker was a lot easier to get through than John's was. I didn't even really need to conserve my ammo since there's no environmental obstacles to take care of. Just take out the enemy, twist some valves, and then fight my way out. Simple. That leaves me at 2 out of 3. The only person we have left to take care of is Jacob. I definitely saved the best for last. And by saved the best for last, I meant, of course, I saved the most annoying and the most difficult for last. I'm not a super big time trial fan in the first place, so trying to do Jacob's abduction sections is going to be interesting. But before I get there, I'm going to have to do another hour or so of resistance point collection, so let's do this one last time. Okay, here we go. I got sniped across the world by Hawkeye, and now I'm currently being transported to be brainwashed. My strategy going into this mission was to just run through it and not die since they don't give you a slingshot to use. Simple, you'd think, right?
Nope.
If you so much as enter someone else's personal bubble in this game, they will smack you with the butt of their gun, and you're on the ground for like a full second. This is a horrible thing to have happen when you're trying to do a time trial. Luckily for me though, the missions get progressively more difficult and longer in length, so I'm actually able to pull off this first one without attacking a single person. It only took 1 try too. maybe I actually can do this. Instead of showing you everything I had to do to get to the second Jacob visit, like helping Hurt, stopping a dude from escaping on an ATV, or liberating one of the like 3 different outposts, I'm gonna show you one single thing. The most important of all the things I did, actually, and all the people I helped. Cheeseburger. He can't help me out in this challenge, but man, do I love this bear. But alright, now that you've been graced with the presence of Cheeseburger, it's time to show you the ugly that is this next mission. I tried for what felt like an eternity to get this second time trial with no weapon. When I wasn't being knocked to the floor for being slightly too close to an enemy, I was dying to the constant gunfire before even getting close to the finish line. I tried everything, and after a while I feel like I've got the route optimized perfectly. You can even slide to avoid the getting punched in the face animation at times. I even went into the mission with armor to give me a tiny extra bit of an edge, but unfortunately it didn't help much. There was finally one single instance where I thought I would be able to beat it without using any weapons, but these 2 enemies right here in this doorway blocked the path, and as far as I could tell, there was no way to get through without killing them. I already had extremely little time left at this point in the run, so knowing this, I had to come to the conclusion it simply wasn't possible to get through without shooting. Truly unfortunate, but I kind of expected this to happen. Surprisingly enough, Jacob must have heard how much I didn't enjoy myself there, and after only a couple of missions later, he brings me right back. I won't sit here and make you watch this again, so I'll just skip us on past, and there we go. Jacob used his music box of doom to force me to shoot my best friend Eli in the face, so now I'm going to return the favor in kind. So I step outside and into hell, apparently. Each enemy in this illusionary hellscape, except for Jacob himself and a few of the enemies, are able to be taken out in one hit like the Faith illusions, so I'm able to equip the infinite rocks I have in my pocket to take them out and conserve ammo. I'm forced to use explosive-tipped arrows here to explode the generators, but otherwise, this goes extremely well. I'm even smart about it and refill my arrows before exploding the last generator to get more ammo for the fight to follow.
You can't stop fate.
Can't stop fate, but already killed Faith. After exiting the Shadow Realm, it's time to defeat Jacob in the real one. All the enemies here are just like their normal counterparts, so they are easy, so long as I can hit them. Wolves, as long as you can land a headshot with an arrow, instant kill them, same with the normal guys, but over the course of the game, I've come to rely on the incendiary arrows to kill the armored guys. It doesn't kill them instantly, but if you can stay out of sight and let the arrow work its magic, they succumb to the heat pretty quickly. Then I had enough of his BS and just downed some boosters. Could you imagine seeing a hopped up man on a mission sprinting at you at this speed? It's like I have star power in Mario. Within about 10 seconds, I climb to the top of this mountain and he takes 2 arrows to the face before dying. And I absolutely love that he's still talking while being face down on the dirt here. Well, best bro Eli's death won't be in vain now, but my business with Jacob isn't done yet. I still have to save best buddy Pratt in Jacob's bunker. This bunker is like Faith's, where it's easy to get through so long as you take your time. Pratt, when I got there, experienced a well-deserved mental breakdown, and now the bunker's about to blow up somehow. It's simply kill, don't die, and escape is my objective. Look, it's a wild flamethrower guy. See how he's got his signature red tank on his back? Simply magnificent creature. Oh, he saw me. Once I escape though, we only have one more thing to do in the game, and I could not be more ready. I've got every perk I need, maxed out ammo. Let's do this. Well, here I am, the final fight. Even though I was just talking to some of these people not 30 seconds ago, Joseph has apparently gathered them all up and taken over their mind once again with the bliss. He gives me one final chance to just go home and leave, which honestly is very nice of him considering we just killed his family. But I say, no, and well, it's go time. Immediately upon starting the fight, my armor breaks, so much for that. But the arrows are doing some serious work against my friends. I think even a body shot with the arrow is enough to take them out, but as always, I always aim for the head, even to my own detriment at times. Honestly, I think looking back at this fight, I should have focused on taking out Joseph while my team healed and picked up one another, because if I do so, I get locked into a 12-year-long animation, where they just go, boop, and they're back alive. But I'll keep it in mind for next time. I continue fighting, Phase 2 introducing wolves into the mix. They're almost nothing to take out though. I don't even really need a full pullback on the slingshot to take them out. Side note, but it becomes really hard to aim when you have about 10 things to worry about at the same time. The fact I can one-shot every enemy pretty much means as long as I actually aim, I shouldn't die. But the second Herc becomes available, he starts carrying the whole show. Who'd have thought that infinite RPG rounds is actually pretty insane? I know, right? But as the fight comes to a close and I have all my friends by my side, that allows me to put the final arrow in the head of Joseph, essentially beating the game. Because we're not going to talk about the ending. The ending doesn't exist. But with that, and as we watch the final fictional, totally non-canon ending of Far Cry 5, we finally did it. This game is definitely doable, within reason, to complete with only a slingshot. It would have been so much more difficult if I had to use only the rocks as ammo, so I'm really glad they thought of that addition to the weapon, allowing it to use arrows. I think it would have been one of those gag weapons otherwise, and it makes me happy they actually tried to balance it a bit for the game. Far Cry 5 is still one of my favorite games of all time to this day. There's just so much immersion that can be had in the world. Like I put in the video, Faith's cutscenes, I think at least, are still some of the most atmospheric and beautiful cutscenes of almost any game out there, and the story up until the end is really interesting. I also am a really big fan of how this game does difficulty. There's no bullet sponginess, you simply take more damage, and your gun doesn't feel any less powerful. I do wish there was a higher difficulty to this game, but the hard mode still gets the job done, I guess. This challenge was a lot of fun. Now let's see if I can up the ante even higher in the next one.